The following is a Michigan Sesquicentennial Year presentation.
The sun is peeking through the aspens on this opening morning of Michigan's firearm deer season, November 15th, 1987. No morning is filled with more anticipation for deer hunters than this morning. It's about 42 degrees. Light wind, dry, rain is in the forecast. We're in a blind here in the northeastern part of the Lower Peninsula, Vic Werp's Dry Hole Club. We're going to be sitting in this blind for the next couple of hours, hoping to see some deer, maybe get a deer. Michigan's deer herd has never been at a higher population than right now. But the conditions, I don't know. We're going to be heading out in a few hours to check around the North Country, see how the hunters have been doing. But when we come back, we'll be sitting in this blind, hoping to bring you some opening day deer footage at least. So you stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's opening day for me, Thursday night for you. Time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. Faced in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees. Listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in this state of Michigan.
5 years ago, there was a little snow cover. It was crisp, maybe 25 degrees, and we had a doe come up right out here, walked around, stomped, flared its tail, and walked off. It was an exciting moment. But so far this morning, it's quiet.
It was an unusually quiet morning in the woods for opening day. This blind had always been the most productive at the Dry Hole Club. We heard shots all around us, and everyone expected we'd see lots of deer. Vic Werp rolled out the red carpet, but when we came back at noon, we were empty-handed. Well, here we are. Me, the big-name honored guest, didn't even see a deer today. How about you?
I saw 7 knock one down, though.
The hunters who returned from the woods at noon were the successful ones. Pete had to bring his in yet, but John Coulson from Bloomfield Hills bagged a 5-point buck that was already hanging on the pole. John had a 10-point come in after daylight, but he couldn't connect. A few minutes later, after the 10-point passed through, this 5-point came ambling in. So this day began a day of stories from hunters, success stories mixed with stories of hunters who saw no bucks, or like my case, saw no deer.
Today.
What do you make of that, Vic? How can this be? There are more deer. I've been telling people there are more deer than ever before in this state.
I don't understand why you didn't see a deer. The first 3 men that reported in saw 14 deer, of which 3 were bucks, and 2 deer were taken. The other 9 fellows haven't come in yet.
Huh. Stop by for a little bite to eat at lunch here at Dunleavy's. Floodwater Inn, we're told to say here in Hillman, and ran into Jack Owen. And Jack, congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Your hunting's over for today, huh?
Yes, Fred. I think it's over for the season.
For the season? Well, you got yourself a nice 6-point that I've heard is way back in the swamp somewhere where you hunt.
Yeah, I really like to get back in where there's no other hunters. The deer are very relaxed, and this one popped right out at me about 10 after 8, and I shot him.
Now, how far back are you talking?
Half a mile.
That's half mile in a swamp?
Yeah, it's all swamp drag.
You have to wear hip boots or anything like that?
No, just good boots that don't leak.
You know, it's a lot easier to go in a half mile than it is to drag a deer out a half mile.
Yes.
That's why a lot of guys don't go in and hunt them.
Well, yeah, it took me about an hour to decide to start the drag. I procrastinated the whole thing. I always do. But once I get started, 3 feet at a time for many times.
Is that right? Well, you got yourself a good stout stick.
Yes.
Well, Jack was one of the few lucky hunters we saw by 2 o'clock on Sunday. But by the time we drove down to Lewiston, the buck pole put up by the Lewiston Sportsman's Club was filling up with nice bucks. Frank Moulding from Canton had the largest deer. It weighed 174 pounds dressed, and this buck represented years of diligent hunting. Is this the biggest deer you've ever taken?
It's first shot I ever got of the deer.
Are you kidding me?
Very first one.
First shot at a deer and got yourself a, well, we'll call an 8-point for sure.
12 years I've been hunting, and it's the first one.
No kidding?
Yeah, first one I've ever seen really to get a shot at.
I think he deserves a little round of applause, don't you, for all his effort? Good folks here at Lewiston. Well, that's great. So where are you going now?
I'm going to take it back to the cabin, and then we're going to put it in the freezer.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, pretty warm.
Well, congratulations to Frank. He and his family will have many good meals from this buck. Well, John Ford and I worked our way south on the county roads looking for hunters. There's a guy who waves to us as he's tooling south with his deer. Looks like a heavy-bodied buck on the back of his car. We saw lots of deer on the backs of cars and the beds of pickup trucks. And all this success, I was wondering if my opening morning was just hunter's luck. I pulled the Bronco up to an empty-handed hunter, Denny Rivard from Midland, and we compared notes.
We saw one. We saw a few of them on the way out that were shot, but we didn't have any luck. How about you?
Nope, didn't see hide nor hair this morning of a deer, and we were in the best blind in the whole place, the one that consistently produces more deer. But I think myself, just the weather is so easy on them.
I do too. Beautiful hunting though.
Oh, it is?
Can't beat the weather.
I don't think I've ever been more comfortable in a blind.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, you have to go back to work tomorrow?
Well, where were all the bucks? Well, we found them at 8 o'clock. Tuck Sporting Goods in Houghton Lake on the buck pole. There we go. What's happening?
How you doing?
All you guys get deer?
Right.
Great. How many bucks they got up here? Anybody know?
A lot.
I guess a lot. How many did you say?
About 60, 65.
65, something like that?
Nice looking ones.
Holy cow. Where's mine?
Got an empty bullet again?
No, I want it to grow another 1 or 2 pounds.
Got a license?
I need a little more venison.
You get a license?
I got a license. You know I got a license.
You gonna rub it in?
Hey, I got 2 licenses, as a matter of fact. Well, I've never seen so many hunters at Tuck's as on this opening day. A comparable number of bucks to last year with one notable addition, Bob Garner and his 5-point. Congratulations to Bob and all the lucky hunters. Tomorrow's another day, and we'll bring you a second day report in just a few minutes. Looking back on the opening day, our sports shops and guides around the state generally report that hunting was up. Dick's favorite sports in the Keweenaw Peninsula says deer were up. Need snow. They needed snow in the west end of the UP, but Root Cellar says the deer hunting was still up. They didn't like that rain. They probably have snow by now, no doubt. Bayshore Resort Escanaba says deer success was up. By the way, they're getting 8 to 12-inch perch limits in shallow water. Harry Reinfelder said the opener was kind of a bummer. Deer hunting was down. The deer weren't moving. Nobody's fishing either, but they're expecting a good weekend. Adrian's of Rogers City says the deer success is way up. Ace Hardware right across the way says that deer success was down, looking for colder weather. Captain Emil Dean says there was only one guy fishing steelhead. He hung up his rod and went hunting. Deer hunting was fine, though. Chief Sports Shop says the success was just about the same as last year around Houghton Lake, a little bit up possibly. Wellman Sports Center in Oscoda says they're getting limits of steelhead in Oscoda for those anglers out, but most people are chasing the deer. Harlow's on the Bay. Essexville says the deer hunting is down, maybe a ripple effect from the southern Michigan county closures on Sunday. Parsley Sports Shop says deer hunting is up around the Wego. By the way, the walleye are starting to run in Muskegon River. Good deer hunting in the southwest, according to BJ's at St. Joe, but they say steelheading is best year in many years for those anglers that want to get out. They're catching 7 to 8-inch perch down here in the southeast, according to Real Hunting Outlet. Deer hunting is up. Interest in deer is up, and we should have some snow on a cold weekend. That'll be a good way to get you a big buck for the trophy book. The typical Stroh's Hunting Award qualifying rack has 10 points. Here's a perfect example. Dennis Aldrich from Taylor with a Missaukee County buck. Another classic 10-point taken from Wexford County by Scott Daniels from Livonia, a nearly perfectly symmetrical rack. Now this buck has a narrow spread, only 13.5 inches, but some tall tines, and it's a 10-point. Jim Stark from West Bloomfield took it last year in Montmorency County. Bucks from the muzzle-loading season this year won't make it in time for Big Buck Night, but we'll catch them when we tape the stories of the Hunting Awards banquet in February. This muzzle-loader buck was taken last December in Genesee County by Richard Wyatt from Clio. That's a 20 3/4 inch spread, 12 big points and 4 smaller ones that hold a ring. A conservative score of 33, adding the points and spread. And this buck measures about the same, but has thicker, heavier beams. Definitely an Upper Peninsula monster taken by Mark Maxon from Gaylord. Look at the size of this buck. It says it's a 12-pointer with a massive rack.
Looks closer to 10-point, though,
To you?
to me. It's a good 10-point.
Who scored it?
Holden Lake.
Oh, okay, somewhere at Odin Lake? Okay, well, it's a big rack nonetheless. It has about the thickest around the beams here that I've seen.
Right. It weighed 202. They scored it for commemorative bucks at 171 3/8.
Wow, somewhere up in Chippewa County.
That's correct. My wife wasn't too crazy about me going hunting. We were due to have a baby a week later, and I was happy I got my trophy. She had her little girl, so.
Wow, your little girl, the two of you.
It was a great year.
Now, did you get back in time for the baby?
Yep, a week later.
Good work. Everything was on time as it should be.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay. A massive rack with foot-long tines. You don't see bucks like that very often. Congratulations to Mark Maxon, our Michigan Outdoors Big Buck Hunter of the Week.
Talk about dodging a bullet. The United States Army had an exercise maneuver planned for the eastern Upper Peninsula on opening day of deer season. Now, thanks to the intervention of Senator Carl Levin's office, the Army avoided the conflict and made sure all of its 2,000 camouflage troops were out of the woods by midnight, November 14th. And due to the Great Lake Michigan salmon crash of 1987, Fish Chief John Scott has put together an ad hoc committee of biologists and individuals to determine what caused the problem. They hope to have an answer by the early part of next year. And it'd be a good idea to be especially alert on the roads this month. Last year, 32,000 plus deer car accidents were reported and 5 people were killed. Over 8,000 of the accidents occurred in November alone. The Outdoors Forever Board recently voted unanimously to set up an endowment trust fund. The purpose of the fund will be stabilizing future funding for Outdoors Forever and production of Michigan Outdoors. Only the interest and the earnings will be used, the principal will remain intact, and all contributions will be tax deductible. And according to DNR biologists, the outlook for the deer hunt on public land was not nearly so rosy as on the private land. Still in all, DNR Wildlife Chief Carl Hosford says public land hunters have been doing pretty good.
We've taken some big bucks on public land coming through here today. The fellows that I've talked to on public land have been seeing quite a few deer. I would say the average hunter had seen 12 to 15 deer that I talked to in the last 2 days.
One thing that bothers me about television is the way it treats deer season here in Michigan. Now, they're aware that deer season is a big story, but they don't understand it, nor do they know how to handle it. Pre-deer season reports from a large Detroit area station picture deer hunters as not only poor shots, but cold-blooded murderers. A Lansing area station in its preseason report said that deer hunters would spend together almost $250,000 on deer hunting. Now, that comes out to about 35 cents per hunter. Other reports I saw covering opening day on several stations featured just a lot of dead deer and blood. The reports likened deer season to a slaughter, and it left out important elements like camp life, and they didn't even convey the respect we hunters have for the white-tailed deer. It's Bush League the way they handle our deer season. Their methods may be adequate for handling chicken barbecues and small-town parades, but they lack a lot of sensitivity and detail to truly present the story of the deer hunt.
Well, I haven't said anything so far as to whether I got a buck this season or not. But I did just at dark on the second day after John left with the camera and Raj left. I got a spiked buck.
Well, congratulations, Fred.
Well, then congratulations to you on your second buck.
Hey, I got lucky. You know, even a blind pig finds an acorn once in a while. Second morning, I got a 4-point.
That's great. And you were hunting in the swamp, which brings up the subject of a
Yes.
question that we've gotten from a number of viewers.
And especially from the Grand Rapids area, we got the question of, are hunters allowed to shoot deer or bear when they are standing in water? What constitutes water, swamps or marshes? And how deep of water is the law talking about? 10 to 12 inches in a swamp?
Well, you know, you often see a deer crossing water like this, crossing a ditch or in some 10-inch water. That, according to Herb Burns of the Law Division, does not constitute the spirit of the law. Now, here's a shot of a deer that is running towards the lake where it would have to swim. Now, this is actually what the intent of the law was, to talk about deer in that situation where they're swimming. Those photos, by the way, came from Irwin Bauer's Deer in Their World book.
Yeah, the law is just trying to keep people from taking advantage of one that's relatively, helpless.
Right, that's an ethical question, and one which Herb Burns says, frankly, he wished it wasn't on the books because conservation officers have to make this decision themselves as to whether or not a hunter was in violation of that aspect of the law. But he says there's only been 2 violations that he knows of in maybe the past 20 years that have been written for that.
Sure.
So just go by your conscience and don't take deer, in a helpless situation. Now here's a question about venison in our outdoor quiz.
At what constant temperature must beef or venison be kept in order to properly age and tenderize the meat? Tenderizing deer by hanging the carcass for a few days will only be done properly if the temperature is held between 36 and 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Life begins at 40. Above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, bacteria will quickly grow and begin spoiling the meat.
The second day of Michigan's 1987 firearm deer season, Bob Garner made it across the bridge to Harry's place on Muskogee Bay, where he didn't find as many bucks as he expected. Harry Reinfelder had a few on the pole, but he didn't have one hanging there himself.
It's not a typical UP opener, no sir. We don't have ice on the bay. Usually we have ice on the bay. We have 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground, but this year it's nice. Except today it's raining.
Well, you've already taken a buck with a bow.
Right.
So are you holding out for a big one, or?
Well, I got to hold back. It's hard to hold back, Bob.
Have you seen many deer, Harry?
I've seen 3 doe so far. That's it.
Well, the rain in the UP dampened the woods, dampened the activity of deer, and definitely dampened the spirits of the wet hunters. But on this same day, the second day of the season in the Lower Peninsula, at least in the Clare area, it was dry. Roger McCarville, cameraman John Ford, and I spent the morning in a deluxe blind on the Capert Ranch where we saw plenty of deer. The wind was fairly still, so we could only whisper when the deer came in, sometimes 4 or 5 at a time.
It was carrying the mail down here, so I thought maybe, okay, there's another one behind it. There's 2 more behind that. We're going to have 1 mile of deer here. Can you watch your moves? Because when they look at us, this big doe in front is looking.
Even though we didn't see any bucks, we saw lots of does and fawns, and that made an exciting day in the blind. As the breeze would shift and pick up, the deer seemed to sniff trouble in the wind. Sometimes they might catch a glimpse of us moving in the blind, or maybe they heard us whispering. But it was fun. That makes deer hunting right there. Bagging a deer is a bonus. Being outdoors, seeing a few deer, experiencing the excitement. That's where it's at in the world of deer hunting.
That's what I thought.
Let's take a moment to think about our hunting friends who become disabled. Accidents or diseases that affect their legs. These fellas don't want to give up on hunting, but to a wheelchair user, there's no such thing as a step up in the world. A step is a barrier, just like Roger McCarville trying to get up this curb. Is it any wonder that many handicappers who used to hunt give it up, even without trying it again? Well, taking a wheelchair off the road is difficult at best, even on terrain that looks flat and is easy to walk. Roger's using a sports chair, lightweight for wheelchair basketball, but not worth much off a hard surface. Tiny front wheels, and Roger's center of gravity is directly above the axle over the rear wheels. That's great for basketball, but a chair like this does not work well for off-road use. Here's a chair that does. It's hand-powered, but the center of gravity is ahead of the axle. Larger front wheels each has independent spring suspension. It's called an iron horse, designed by Sandy Duffy, a paraplegic who's also a determined and innovative sportsman.
I'm quite active in the outdoors, and I like to do a little hunting and fishing, and take, as you know, summer trips out to Montana and Wyoming, and I take a teepee and strap her on the back of my van and take off. But the chairs that I was used to just weren't holding up. Welds would break and I'd be dead in the water.
Well, not only can Sandy's iron horse make it through water on gravel-bottom streams, but he can take it places nobody would ever think of going in a wheelchair. Look at this, cutting over a bank. The center of gravity ahead of the axle enables Sandy to rock back and forth. Now, it looks like he might tip over, but he has full control. Going up a hill or over obstacles takes a lot of upper body strength, and younger wheelchair users often have that. But for older chair users or for quadriplegics who don't have the upper body muscle control, Sandy is developing a powered iron horse so they can explore the off-road trails too. Now, beaches and sand have always been a barrier to wheelchairs. Impossible alone and very difficult even with help. But Sandy's solved that problem. How about that? This is a dream come true for handicappers who used to enjoy the outdoors but gave up because they couldn't roll their wheelchairs over the rough terrain. Independent suspension on the wheels make uneven ground or sloping trails much easier to negotiate. It's called the Iron Horse. The inventor is Sandy Duffy from Port Huron. It's one of the outdoor wheelchairs featured in the November-December Outdoors Forever magazine, which is included in our Outdoor Digest. Just one more way that handicappers can hit the trail, rejoin their friends in deer camp, and follow that dream that all of us have of enjoying the outdoors forever.
Local PBS stations just did a pre-pledge mailing to sportsmen around the state, a letter from Fred Trost reminding hunters of Big Buck Night and asking for a pledge ahead of this busy evening. If you received one of these letters, please consider sending in your tax-deductible contribution to PBS so you can receive this limited edition print.
This recipe I wouldn't given you two hoots for from looking at the ingredients. Chris Gonering from Sandusky sent us this called a Hunter 6-layer casserole. 6 layers of some of the almost strange combinations of ingredients.
Downright weird is what
yeah,
it is.
It absolutely is.
They all complement each other so well, though.
They do, but the sauerkraut.
It's there, and it's very, very good.
There's rice.
And you do have sauerkraut, sour cream, and tomatoes. You're going to drain the juice off the tomatoes, and you're going to use this to cook the rice in. And it says wild grain rice, and that's what we're going to use.
Long grain and wild rice
And
with the tomato
juice. You may have to add a little bit more water to that if it doesn't quite come up to enough water. Now we're going to cook this the real quick way here.
Shortcut.
In the microwave. Yep. And then you're going to brown your venison burger, and you do want it cooked completely. You don't, because it is going to be layered. You want to drain your sauerkraut completely also.
And you're not going to save that?
No, you're not going to save any of that for anything. You're going to go ahead and put the rice in a casserole dish. And like you said, just layer everything in there. And then the sauerkraut.
That's odd.
Wild
rice,
strong,
rice and sauerkraut and sour cream.
And sour cream. Now this is going to mild out your sauerkraut just a little bit.
I can't figure out what kind of recipe this is. I don't know if it's Italian.
Very
if
good.
It's, what the heck?
Add your venison burger to the top of this.
Now look, you notice that venison burger didn't have any fat in it.
None whatsoever.
It really didn't.
And going to layer your tomatoes on top. Sounds like a stew almost, And then your cheese on top of that. Now, Chris says to marinate or put this in the refrigerator overnight, and I think that just helps to blend all the flavors together.
So it goes in the refrigerator, and then
In the oven.
only bakes for a half hour or so.
That's right.
If it's been cold.
20 minutes if not.
Mainly, it just warms it up because it's all been cooked. Now,
You
Bob,
stand in grave danger of hurting yourself eating this stuff too fast.
well,
It
I'll tell
is
you,
good stuff.
and if I sit at home like our folks here watching this, I'd say no.
Oh, yeah.
You have to go by our word.
Yes, it's very, very good.
Tremendously tasty recipe, Chris. You have a winner there. There's no doubt about it. Folks, I hope you can get outdoors this weekend. It's a great place to be. See you next week.
I think myself, just the weather is so easy on them.
I do too. Beautiful hunting though.
Oh, it is?
Can't beat the weather.
I don't think I've ever been more comfortable in a blind.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, you have to go back to work tomorrow?
Well, where were all the bucks? Well, we found them at 8 o'clock. Tuck Sporting Goods in Houghton Lake on the buck pole.
There we go. What's happening?
How you doing?
All you guys get deer?
Trying.
Great. How many bucks they got up here? Anybody know?
A lot.
I guess a lot. How many did you say?
I think about 60, 65.
65, something like that?
Nice looking ones.
Holy cow. Where's mine?
Got an empty bullet again?
No, I want it to grow another 1 or 2 pounds.
Got a license?
I need a little more venison.
You get a license?
I got a license. You know I got a license.
You get rubbing it in.
Hey, I got 2 licenses, as a matter of fact.
Well, I've never seen so many hunters at Tuck's as on this opening day. A comparable number of bucks to last year with one notable addition, Bob Garner and his 5-point. Congratulations to Bob and all the lucky hunters. Tomorrow's another day, and we'll bring you a second day report in just a few minutes.